Welcome back to A Peek at the New Shelf. We'll be reading today from this science fiction novel called Generation, written by Frank G. Davis and published by Frank G. Davis through Amazon and read by Frank G. Davis. All are the same person, just in case you were wondering. Behind me is a picture of the shuttle bay of the Generation ship Hope. And Hope is the first starship to travel to Alpha Centauri and return. Protector Kaplan. I was the first one to see him. Protector Graves and I were having lunch at an outdoor cafe just inside Gate 3M. Graves was bored and I was scanning the passing crowd in the plaza as I ate. "Come here, little fly," said Graves. "Look what I have for you. It's your favorite food, all sweet and sugary. Yum, yum." A fly on the table was making a random walking pattern that took it close to Graves' wand. When it sensed the drop of syrup, the fly scurried quickly to the wand and began to feed. "Will you look at that?" exclaimed Graves. "I got the wand set on 3 and it has no effect." "Quit torturing the bugs, Graves," I said as I pushed the last of my meat roll into my mouth while continuing to watch the crowd. "That's just the point," he responded. "I'm not torturing them. They don't feel a thing. Let's see what level 8 does." I quickly glanced at Graves to be sure no one was standing close to him. "Be careful with the wand," I warned. "Relax, Kaplan. You worry too much. And quit staring at the crowd. You're making people nervous. This is ring 3, not the outer ring. Nothing ever happens here." Graves shook off the feeding fly and tapped the wand control to a level 8 setting. The fly began circling, moving closer to the wand. My scanner went off. "What have you got?" asked Graves. "Citizen without a star," I answered, not looking up as I checked the scanner display. "I'll take it. You play with your bugs." As I got up and started to move through the crowd, I heard a zap, followed by a giggle from Graves. The lunchtime crowd was pretty heavy, but as usual, I parted as I moved in the direction of the center. No one wanted to get in the way of a protector. There was no mistaking him. I could tell by his clothes that he wasn't one of the chosen. He was wearing a light blue one-piece jumpsuit with a tight-fitting hood, covering most of his head and neck. Almost all of the chosen wear loose-fitting white robes. None of them wear jumpsuits. My first reaction was to wonder how he had gotten into Ring 3. The protectors at Gate 3N were going to have to be disciplined. He was standing by himself, looking up at the buildings on either side of the plaza, slowly turning to take it all in. A look of curiosity on his face. His face. If I had any doubts before, one look at that face was all I needed to tell me he was not one of the chosen. His skin was dark with a yellow cast. Wisps of short, jet-black hair peeked out from under the hood. But it was his eyes. It was his eyes that stopped me in my tracks. They were a dark walnut shade of brown. I touched my communicator. "Graves, I need backup now." The center turned at the sound of my voice and smiled at me, showing perfect white teeth. "Good day to you, citizen," I said in a calm voice as I could manage. "You seem to have forgotten your star." He looked puzzled and started to speak up, just as Graves came up slightly behind him. "Yes, citizen," said Graves. "That's Star of David, your ID star, the one they gave you when you came through the outer gate. From the looks of your clothes, that couldn't have been too long ago." He started to turn toward Graves, but turned back as I asked, "What are you doing in Ring 3? Don't you remember what orientation explained to you about staying in the outer ring until you were chosen?" "I didn't come through the outer gate," he said in a heavenly accented voice. "Of course you did. Every Gentile comes through the outer gate. You must have forgotten," said Graves sarcastically. The center started to turn again, but Graves had moved to the other side, still behind him, with his wand in his hand. Like a yo-yo, he had turned back as I said, "You have sinned, citizen, and as protectors of the law, it is our job to punish sinners. Going without your star is a level 1 sin. After you are punished, we will find out how you got into Ring 3. There will probably be additional punishment required. He stepped back and put out both hands in front of him to ward me off as I moved forward. Now wait a minute. You can't punish me. I'm not one of you. I'm not from here. Graves stepped forward and laid the wand on his shoulder. There should have been a slight zap, a simple shock to serve as a reminder that everyone has to obey the law or suffer the consequences. Instead, there was a blinding flash and a clap of thunder as Graves and the stranger were ripped apart. Graves must have flown 10 yards through the air before landing hard on the peddler's cart. His wand dropped straight down with a clattering sound, practically at my feet. The stranger looked like a fireworks display. Blue-white sparks danced over his body as he lay jerking and twitching on the ground 5 yards away. Smoke was rising from his body as I stood there in shock. A small crowd of curious citizens had gathered while Graves and I interrogated the stranger. There is always an element of the population who enjoys watching others get punished, but no one could have anticipated what just happened. Most scattered before the bodies hit the plaza tile. Only a few remained to gawk. A young woman came running up. Her eyes grew wide at the sight of the smoldering stranger.
"Someone help him!"
she cried, and then, when no one moved, she snatched a cape off of the man standing next to her and flung it over the stranger's body and began to pat out the sparks. "Hey! You stole my cape! Stop that! You're going to ruin it! Protector, stop that woman! She stole my cape!" He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me toward the woman who was furiously trying to put out the fire. His touch startled me out of my shock. At the same moment, he realized his error. Nobody ever touches a protector. "Protector, please forgive me," he pleaded as he backed away, shaking his hands as if to get the touch of me off his skin. "But she stole my cape," he ended in a fearful whimpering. I moved to the woman and grabbed her by the arm, lifting her away from the stranger. I flung the cape in the direction of the still protesting man. "If you have a complaint, file it with the judge." I glared at him and he backed away quickly, inspecting the smoked cape. "It's ruined," he whined. "That woman ruined my new cape. She's going to have to pay, and I want her punished too. She stole it." I hardly heard him.